Alright guys, what's going on? I'm Tim Kelly. This is The Real Sports Talk. Thank you guys for tuning in. Please subscribe. Hit the subscribe button right above. Facebook.com/TheRealSportsTalk and follow me on Twitter at @CashKelly_TRST, KASHKelly_TRST. I've done a lot of comparison videos recently. I did the Bill Russell versus Michael Jordan video most recently, and all the comparison videos I've done are because people have been talking about them, or they're in the news, or it's just, for some reason it's a hot point of discussion. This video is really just kind of out of my own imagination, but I thought it would be an interesting comparison. The first thing I want to say in comparing Allen Iverson and Magic Johnson is they both played in completely different eras. That's the first part. And then the second part, they played on completely different teams. And I know there is no comparison to be made in terms of who's better. Magic Johnson is one of the top 5 point guard or top 5 NBA players of all time, and then Allen Iverson is somewhere in the top 45, 40, somewhere right in that area. He had a tremendous career, there's no doubt about it. But there's no comparison to be made in terms of who's better. It's just drawing similarities, differences, and what separates Magic Johnson, what small things maybe Allen Iverson was actually better at than Magic Johnson, things like that. And I think that the first thing that really separates them is their size. Allen Iverson is a generous 6 foot, 165 pounds compared to Magic Johnson, who was 6'9", 220. And defensively already, while Allen Iverson made some of the greatest hustle plays you'll ever see defensively, Magic was way more versatile. I mean, you talk about his first championship without Kareem there. He went down and played the 5 defensively. That's something that Allen Iverson just, he could not do that. At 5'11", 6 foot, 165, there's no way you can go down and play any other position besides 1 or 2 defensively. There's absolutely no way, size-wise, that would work. At 165 pounds, especially as forwards now have gotten bigger in today's game, but even when Iverson was playing and even when Magic Johnson was playing, there's no way that you can even go down and guard a lot of the small forwards. So Allen Iverson was restricted defensively, but he did make some incredible hustle plays, and that's what I think a lot of people are going to try and make a case in the comments that Allen Iverson was a better defender. From watching tape of both, from watching Allen Iverson live, because I'm a Sixers fan, there's not really a comparison to be made about who's a better defender. Allen Iverson was just more exciting, and I think people will get caught up in that. But on ball, Magic Johnson was way better. There's no doubt about it. And the versatility, the fact that he's 6'9", it's like watching LeBron James in terms of how he can play every single different position defensively. That's how Magic Johnson was as well. Now, points-wise, that's where it begins to get interesting. Allen Iverson, and again, they're on completely different teams. If you look at who Magic Johnson played with, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, James Worthy, it helps, but at the same time, he also probably took less shots, wasn't as aggressive a scorer as Allen Iverson, who, if you think about the best teammates in Allen Iverson's time with the Sixers, Dikembe Mutombo was not an offensive force. Aaron McKie was a role player, good player, won a 6th Man of the Year award, but there was no one really all that impressive when he was with the Sixers. Chris Webber after his prime, Andre Iguodala, very young, Andre Iguodala is not a very good offensive player anyway, even in his prime now. So I'm thinking about the best offensive player that he ever played with, and it was probably Carmelo Anthony, and those two never necessarily played off of each other extremely well and created opportunities for each other. What I remember from Iverson and Carmelo is that they pretty much both got theirs, but overall it wasn't a successful formula. That's why when you saw Iverson go to the Pistons and Chauncey Billups come to the Nuggets, things actually ended up working out better for the Nuggets because Billups distributed the ball better than Iverson did. Points-wise, though, Iverson 26.7 career points per game average, and then a 24,368 points. Magic Johnson, 19.5 points per game, so almost 20, and then 17,707 career points. So Allen Iverson pretty much trumps Magic Johnson points-wise, but that's about the last spot that he kills him at. Iverson, field goal percentage-wise, 42.5%, and Iverson was one of the best at creating shots, but the thing he couldn't do in a lot of cases is he didn't get as many easy shots, as many high percentage shots, because he wasn't as big as Magic Johnson. I'm not making excuses for Allen Iverson, because again, like I said at the beginning of this video, there's no way Allen Iverson is better than Magic Johnson. I'm just trying to put why the percentages vary so much into perspective. And Magic Johnson at 52%, he was able to get more open looks based off who he was playing with, and the fact that he's able to get inside at 6'9", 220 better than Iverson could at 6 foot, 165. So I would expect Magic Johnson to be better, but still, when you talk about 52% field goal percentage, especially in the era that he played in, we see guys in the NBA now, Kevin Durant's close to 50, LeBron shot 57, but the thing that you have to remember in Magic Johnson's career is there wasn't defensive 3 seconds, so defenders could stay down in the bottom there, so it was harder to get points in the paint, so a 52% field goal percentage was pretty impressive for that time, and if you take it to today's standards, it's probably more like a 55, 54, somewhere in that area, I should say. Assists-wise, that's where Magic Johnson, that was his bread and butter, 11.2 assists per game. Allen Iverson, 6.2. And again, it doesn't have to do with the fact that Allen Iverson certainly played with inferior teammates to what Magic Johnson ever played with. But at the same time, Magic Johnson is one of the most creative passers that the game has ever seen. And really, if you go out, even if you don't go and watch game film of Magic Johnson, if you watch just highlights of Magic Johnson's passing, it elevates you to a new level as a basketball player, because you see how the vision that Magic Johnson had and the creativeness with his passes. It was really something that the NBA never saw prior to Magic Johnson, that ability to pass. He revolutionized the game with his passing, and I think that that's something that wasn't Allen Iverson's forte. 6.2 assists per game, you're not going to complain, especially considering who he was playing with, but he just wasn't on the level as an overall passer, vision-wise, assist-wise. There's very few people that have ever consistently made passing look fun in the NBA. Steve Nash has done it. LeBron James does it in a sense now. Magic Johnson certainly did it, and Darren Williams is another guy that comes to mind that does it. But Magic Johnson, out of all of them, probably did it the most. And over 10 assists per game, 11.2 assists per game, extremely solid out of him. Rebounds-wise, 7.2 rebounds per game for Magic Johnson compared to 3.7 for Allen Iverson. And again, Allen Iverson is 6 foot. You rarely saw the guy dunk, so he's not in there as much to get rebounds because of the height. He's playing a lot more at the shooting guard and the point position, and while Magic Johnson's playing both of those, he's also playing the 3, 4, and the 5 occasionally, mostly the 3 and the 4 offensively, and he's going to have a better opportunity to be inside and get rebounds because of where he's positioning himself, whether he's shooting or whatever. And the bigger body, 6'9", not only the 6'9", but the 220 compared to the 165, there really isn't any comparison. Magic Johnson should and did pull down more rebounds than Allen Iverson. 3-point percentage-wise, both of them were about 30% shooters. Allen Iverson a little bit better than that, 31.3. Magic Johnson, 30.3%. 3-point shooters. So neither of them were great 3-point shooters. They weren't horrendous 3-point shooters. And then steals per game. Again, defensively, you think of Allen Iverson, some of the amazing steals that he had. The one on Mark Jackson comes to mind against the Pacers. But stats-wise, that doesn't really show up how creative or how fun it was to watch, because he had 2.2 steals per game, which was better than Magic Johnson. But Magic Johnson had 1.9 steals per game. It really wasn't any discrepancy in who was a better, who stole the ball more. Allen Iverson has a slight edge, but that's really what it is, a slight edge. So overall, I think when you compare the two, defensively, I can tell you about them, but you really need to go look up some footage, whether it's on YouTube or another NBA site that gives you historical footage. You need to be able to watch them to understand defensively why Magic Johnson's a better defender. Stats can tell you a lot more offensively, but they don't really have a creative stat at this point to tell you much about defense. And when they do that, whoever makes up that stat will be one of the richest people, because people that try and make comparisons, the one thing that is always tough to do, especially when you're like me and you weren't able to watch Magic Johnson live, you need to go back and watch the footage as much as you can. But you cannot get, from watching certain footage, it's hard to find footage of just a regular game. You will find footage of NBA Finals, great performances in the regular season, great performances in the playoffs, but you can't just find Game 39 of the regular season where it was just an average game, but you just want to see how defensively they played in a game that wasn't as big. It's hard to do that. And Allen Iverson defensively was not up to the level of Magic Johnson. He was fun to watch, but from what I've seen out of Magic Johnson compared to watching Allen Iverson live with pretty much all the teams he played with, there's no question that Magic Johnson's a better defender, and offensively he had the advantage because of the size. Now, pound for pound in my mind is one of the most overused expressions in sports, but Allen Iverson truly exemplifies pound for pound getting the best out of what you possibly could, because he's 6 foot and 165 and was still an MVP, a one-time MVP, and the fact that he was able to lead a team where the best players around him were Dikembe Mutombo. Dikembe Mutombo defensively was a stud, but offensively never provided a ton. You got Aaron McKee. I mean, you look around at the teams that he was playing with, Kenny Thomas, Chris Webber, Glenn Wright. He never had great teammates. And the fact that he was able... Well, let me go back to the NBA Finals in 2001. So not all those people I named were on that team. You got Dikembe Mutombo, you got Aaron McKee, you have Matt Geiger. It really was not a great team. It wasn't a horrendous team. I think some people lead you to think that he has horrendous supporting cast. But a lot of the guys, Aaron McKee especially, were able to build off of playing with Allen Iverson. And the fact that he was even able to win that first game in the NBA Finals, that was one of the most incredible performances in 2001 that I've ever witnessed watching basketball. Because you think about Allen Iverson with Dikembe Mutombo, Aaron McKee, Matt Geiger, really not a very good team. They beat Kobe Bryant, who went on to be one of the top 5 players, or not top 5, top 15 players in NBA history. Shaq, who in my mind is a top 10 player in NBA history. And just a team that was a dynasty. They had perhaps the greatest coach of all time in Phil Jackson. And Larry Brown wasn't a bad coach either, don't get me wrong. But the fact that they were able to even get a game out of the team that they had against a dynasty Lakers team, it's a testament to how good Allen Iverson was. And that was just one year, 2001 by far Allen Iverson's best year. But that leads me into pound for pound, getting back to the pound for pound debate, that leads me into my next point is, I hear people say that Allen Iverson is the biggest overachiever in NBA history because of what he did with his limited size, but then I also, and that builds off the fact that I can compare, even make the comparison of 6 foot 165 Allen Iverson to 6'9", 220 Magic Johnson. That's my point. And other people will tell me that because Allen Iverson was never able to accept being the number 2 guy, was never able to be just a role player on a team late in his career to help him win a championship, nothing. And the fact that he was out of the NBA at 35 and he's blowing all his money and he's a loser off the court, really, I don't think that there's any other way to look at it. That he's one of the biggest underachievers ever, because while he had a great career, he could have been even better. And he didn't practice, and you know how things go. But I kind of look at it somewhere in between, because while Allen Iverson could have been even better had he practiced on a consistent basis, had he put more into it when he wasn't on the court, I witnessed what this guy did on the court, and it was incredible what Allen Iverson did with the limited size and the limited talent that he played with in his career. To think about the numbers that he was able to put up, and Allen Iverson exemplified Philadelphia, and that's why he went so great and will always be loved in this town and will always be given a pass over even people like Donovan McNabb, who may have had better team success, because for every single moment, Allen Iverson left everything on the First Union, Wachovia, Wells Fargo, whatever the court's called. He left everything on that court at that very moment, and that's what made Allen Iverson such a loved player here, such a loved player across the NBA. There's that side of it, and then there's the side that, had Allen Iverson just said 2 years ago, look, I'm at the end of my career, the twilight of my career, not only do I need to get a championship, but I need money, because I've blown it and I've been really bad with managing my finances. I have a drinking problem. I need to get my life together, but the way that I've always been able to get through things is playing in the NBA. The Miami Heat needed a point guard 2 years ago, and technically I think we found out that they really didn't, because Mario Chalmers has been better than we expected. LeBron James half the time brings the ball up anyway, and then they ended up drafting Norris Cole. But my point is, people felt like they needed a traditional point guard with that team, and Allen Iverson could have been that guy. Because he was out there, he would have been cheap because he was at the end of his career, but he still could have been valuable to that team. And who knows, maybe if he's on that team, they're able to beat the Mavericks in the NBA Finals that year, because Allen Iverson was a clutch shooter, and late in some of those games they could have used that, especially considering how LeBron James disappeared in that NBA Finals. Allen Iverson late would have been extremely valuable to have on that team. So I think you got to look at it in between. Like, Allen Iverson maximized physically what he could do when he was out there, but he only played 14 NBA years and never won a title. And most of the time, I'd say never winning a title was not his fault, because the Sixers never surrounded him with enough talent. But there were times late in his career where had he just accepted being the number 2 guy, or maybe even the number 3 guy, if you're talking about Miami or other cases, he could have had that opportunity to extend his career, get his life back together, and win an NBA title. And that's what separates him from Magic Johnson, because Magic Johnson certainly had the trials and tribulations with AIDS, having to retire, but he got his life together. He's working ESPN now as one of the worst analysts in basketball history, but the point is that he's gotten his life together, figured things out, and is extremely successful and wealthy. And then Allen Iverson is a mess, and it pains me. There's an article in the Washington Post a couple months ago about just how far this guy's fallen and how much of a disaster his life truly is. That's a painful part, and that's really probably what's going to end up being the rest of Allen Iverson's life, unfortunately. But on the court, he maximized what he could have done, but at the same time, he could have done more, and that you had to watch the guy play to truly understand that, and you have to follow everything to truly understand that. But that's the Magic Johnson and Allen Iverson comparison, with the little Allen Iverson conversation mixed in there at the end. Let me know what you guys think. Allen Iverson's a lightning rod. Magic Johnson's one of the greatest players of all time, but because we're always so busy with Kobe versus Jordan, Kobe versus LeBron, LeBron versus Jordan, we never really talk that much about Magic Johnson's career. The only time you'll hear us talk about Magic Johnson anymore is about how bad of an analyst he is, or whether you're talking about AIDS or whatever the case is. You'll hear Magic Johnson's name talked about in basketball, but never to the extent it should be. And that's one thing I like to do on this channel, is compare players and give players the credit historically that they deserve. So let me know what you guys think. Hit me up on Twitter, Facebook, youtube.com/MrKelstar. I'll see you guys next time.